Fun name tags.
There we go. So there's number one.
Your problem now.
Yeah. So I got that because every now and then there will just be like, I don't know, some dude who decides that he's going to interrupt me in the middle of my training session for whatever reason. So at that point, I'm like, probably one of my more festive ones is
Your worst uncle's worst nightmare.
Oh yeah. Which then leads into, the shorter version of the same thing, frankly.
Trans lesbian communist. Amazing.
I wore this and then almost had an anxiety attack in the locker room while I was washing my hands because I forgot I'd put this one on.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out to be fine. Nobody gave a shit. And then, of course, the last one, Swoletariat.
Oh, Swoletariat.
Yeah.
Who is
Love
one of my
that.
favorite communist content creators.
I have an old Blockbuster name tag somewhere that says Bitches McGee. One of my high school exes worked at Blockbuster until the last day, and now he manages an Ace Hardware.
Made it a Blockbuster night.
Yep. I'm wearing my Trans Science is Inclusive Are You shirt today.
Hell yeah. I ran through a whole variety of tank tops. And it was like, I could put on any one of my festive tank tops. And then it was like, no, it's going to be my wife's favorite dress. For reasons.
You gotta show off the girls.
Yeah.
And the guns.
And the guns.
Girls and guns.
This was her favorite reason. This quickly took over.
You sound like so cute. Like so compatible and like horny for each other in a good way.
At times, yes. At other times, my neurospiciness can be a little problem-y.
Yeah.
It's just distractible.
It's like, what's it like being not aggressively asexual?
I don't know, but I might find out. It's okay. The episode hasn't started yet.
I am recording, though.
Yeah, but you don't have to post it anywhere.
It's fine.
This is going to go in the Patreon.
Yeah, the Patreon that we totally have.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of podcast.
It's not that kind
yet.
of podcast
It's not
yet.
that kind of podcast.
How much money are people willing to pay?
For a mere $15 a month.
All right, are we ready to podcast?
We could start. Guess what? This is actually the podcast.
Oh my god, the cold open is over.
It's all cold open.
This is going to be a long cold open, and it's going to be a sexy cold open.
It's fine.
All
It's
right,
fine.
well,
Like,
I have been your brat, Robin.
I have been your mediocre white man.
and I'm Brooke.
Hey, brats. My name is Robin, and I'm trans.
My name is Ben, and I'm trans.
I'm Brooke.
This is our friend Brooke, also
Hello.
trans.
It's true, I'm very trans.
We're all very trans, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
We are all trans. Ben is a little bit extra trans today, I may say. That sounds very problematic when I say it like that. Ben is equally as valid before, but now he's on T.
Yeah, as of 7 hours ago today, August 15th, because we don't post these in order or like very close to when we record them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm 7 hours on T.
He's
Yay.
a T-boy now.
I'm a T boy. So this is my voice before T technically, because there's no change yet. So this is the start.
We're just gonna change this into like a very elaborate like transition progress video.
You know, if you'd thought about this bit much, much sooner, record like a long backlog of additional guest episodes and then upload them out of order.
Yeah.
So Ben's voice.
I had thought about that like for a little while. Like it didn't matter what order we're going in, but it'll become a little bit trippy pretty quickly.
I was like,
That's okay.
Well, Brooke,
it's hi.
as you may know by now, we like to start off every episode with. No, I was going to say, how would you describe your gender?
Products and Oh, wait. Okay, so I am a trans. I'm a trans femme. I'm a trans woman.
Mm-hmm.
I figured it out. I guess 21 months ago.
Wow.
And you've been on HRT for 18
of
months
those
and 2
months.
days.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your pronouns are she, her, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes. So, Ben, how did we meet our lovely Brooke here?
Brooke, you found us on TikTok, right?
Yes, I did.
And then you joined our Discord, and we've been madly platonically in love with you ever since because you're such a joy and you're so funny and you are beautiful and you are so strong. And I'm just so glad you came on.
And there goes
Yeah.
Brooke.
I know I'm not a high femme, but I do love to give compliments.
Ultimately, it's compliments. Compliments from just pew, pew. I don't know which one of the two of you I messaged before the Discord thing, but I messaged.
It was Robin.
Okay. So I messaged you because I really, really liked the subtitle style that you were using on the clips that you were putting on TikTok, and I wanted to know how the fuck to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was my first actual interaction with you. And then I was like, oh, cool, they have a Discord server. I love those things. I think I'll hang out there.
And that was before we even were airing a podcast.
You're like our first online friend.
Uh-huh.
I thought you guys were cool before the world knew you were cool.
Yeah, you're an original, and I'm very, very glad.
I get to be a hipster trans femme.
Well, you are wearing plaid.
Yeah.
It's true. It's part of the transbian experience, I'm told.
I was going to say very transbian.
I love transbians so much. Like, we need you all in this community, and I'm so glad that transbians exist.
It's so
There's
funny.
a lot of us.
So one of the I would describe her as probably one of my more dangerously competent friends over on another server. Like she works in cybersecurity, specifically in like both writing and defending against malware. And so every now and then she'll just like decide that she wants to teach herself new software, and she did a thing to learn a new like data visualization software, starting from creating a script that trolls people's following and followers list and then comparing overlapping data points to see where a bunch of traffic is coming from. And for a while, a handful of us were the receiving end of a pretty aggressive hate campaign that was targeting any videos that were using the transbian hashtag. And it turns out that a bunch of that traffic was all from Turning Point UK. So that was neat. My response to that, my response to that is the one that I put up on my channel that I guess you guys pointed out. I guess that makes me technically the first brat, which is, you got mad because of transbian story time? Congratulations to recurring segment now.
Yeah, you claimed the title of brat in like February.
I did it.
Yeah,
I'm an early adopter. It's also a lie
so
because
exciting.
I'm very compliant, actually.
Good for you. Do you have a moment of joy?
Yes, I spent a while to think of one that isn't already going to come across when I get to rambling about like Brooke's history of being trans, and it would be the first time that I guess I should rewind. I work at a commercial gym, and as a result, for the longest time, I had to suffer through using the men's locker room. And this continued for the first few months after I started transitioning. And there was like one incident that finally made me go, no, I shouldn't be here anymore, which was, would have been October of last year. So that meant I'd been on hormones for 5 or 6 months. So like 6 months of hormonal changes, and like they needed someone to go into the locker room to cut a lock for one of the members because they'd like forgotten their combination or whatever. And it was the first time that like all of the guys that were in there were apologizing profusely to me that I had to be in there because nobody else could use the lock cutter. It was like, oh, they recognize that I'm not part of this herd. I don't belong in here. Shit, I don't belong in here.
I love that.
That's cute.
That sounds like, just from the few trans people I've talked to, it seems pretty common, like that you just keep going to your assigned gender at birth, like facilities, until suddenly you feel I don't belong here, and then you switch.
There was a couple things that had gone on with that. So that particular incident started a 6 or 7 week long campaign of me communicating with the HR department, going, hey, so there used to be a single occupant gender neutral option in the kids club, but that's been defunct and they haven't done any repairs on it because we no longer offer kids club. It would be super cool if we could maybe get it approved for the repairs, but every time they put in an order for anything, those get shot down because no spending, value only go up, no spending. Thanks, capitalism. But when I explained the situation, this was also part of the process of me coming out to HR. The HR rep was like, "Oh yeah, shit. If you need like a gender neutral bathroom option, that shit should be fixed like ASAP. So we will get our regional facilities manager in to like do the repairs himself if need be." And so I muddled along with that for a while, and it worked okay. Although I still don't think that bathroom has hot water. But anyway. But we had a kind of a disaster incident in the women's locker room, and I got interrupted during a training session with a client by someone's like, excuse me, do you work here? I'm like, I mean, yes, I hit the name tag, but what can I do for you? I'm trying to find like a manager because there's a man in the women's restroom, and in news surprising to no one, of course it turned out to be a trans woman, and she, from the sounds of it, was having the worst day of her life because she had evidently soiled herself in the women's locker room, and that had gotten her a lot of unpleasant attention from the other people that were in the area. And at that point, I was still too like afraid of like, I don't know, getting clocked or making people uncomfortable. So I hadn't actually gone in there to that point. And so like by the time that situation was resolved, I didn't see the person, but it sort of lit a fire under my butt where it's like, I have just as much right to be here, and she really could have used a friend, so I'm just gonna start fucking using the locker room in case anything like this ever happens. And that's been 8 months. 8 months of that.
Oh yeah.
And there's been no real issue aside from I think there's been a complaint from like a member maybe, and I don't even know if it's anyone that's in the locker room or if it's somebody that I have previously pissed off with my attitude when they're being shitty. So yeah, there's been a total of a complaint about me using the restroom that is appropriate to my gender.
I remember you talking about that on Discord, and it sounded like management kind of like backed you up eventually, at least.
Yes. So it turns out that one good policy that 24-Hour Fitness has, they have policies in place to protect transgender members and transgender-like staff, which is that people can use whatever restroom they feel best fits their gender expression. No one can force you to use the single occupant gender-neutral restroom, but if there are people that have problems with people using a restroom that I don't know, for one reason or another they disagree with, they are free to use the single occupant restroom if they are really that upset about it.
Love that.
So
yeah, you can get yourself out of this room if you're that uncomfortable, but
Right.
we're not going to tell someone who's already probably dealing with enough bullshit.
Right. Like for interactions I have personally had in the locker room, there's been a handful of instances of small talk, compliments on my eyeliner, compliments on lipstick color, and I had one woman ask if I could help her because she'd put like her gym top back on too quickly after getting out of the shower, so it had like balled up back there, and she needed a hand to unstuck it. That's
so
it.
relatable as a binder wearer.
So like this concludes the list of human interactions I have had in the women's locker room.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
It sounds pretty normal.
It is extremely normal.
Normal is amazing.
It is. I would like it to be as normal as possible forever because I don't like there being a lot of people in the bathroom anyway.
I don't think most people do.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Fun fact, nobody likes the bathroom.
No.
I don't even like dealing with my own smells, let alone other people's.
God, the change to sense of smell post HRT has been wild. I think it also fixed coffee for me because I hated the taste of. I tried so hard for like 15 years to like the taste of coffee, and I just couldn't do it. Then all of a sudden, a few months into HRT, and all of a sudden it's like, oh hey, there's subtlety and like different notes, and there's stuff going on, even though it's still just like fucking mediocre, like Kirkland's coffee. It's all better now.
I think
Maybe I'll be able to like spicy things if my sense of taste is going to get worse.
Supposedly, testosterone does affect your tolerance for spicy foods. So there seems to be a propensity for being more drawn to spicy foods.
I'm
See,
so excited.
I've heard that too, but I've also like had a craving for spicy stuff recently, so I don't know what that is. Maybe I need to go talk to my endo.
In my case, I've just like simply been like just engrossed in spicy food for my whole like my wife and I
Yeah.
were growing ghost peppers in the backyard for as long as we could until they ended up not getting taken care of when we took a trip.
Mhm.
So then they
I
all died,
did
and
the
I
same.
didn't have the heart to regrow it. But like, yeah, just like take a fresh ghost pepper, grind it in a
Mhm.
secondary coffee grinder so that we don't have the problem of ghost pepper coffee.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing for a few years.
Hell yeah.
I had like a ton of pepper plants, and like was fermenting hot sauce and stuff.
Hell
It's
Ooh.
fun,
yeah.
yeah.
Pickle all the things. Oops, all pickles.
You are so neurodivergent. I can say as a neurodivergent person.
Okay.
What?
It's so crazy. So I guess if we want to get into a little bit of the history of things, I started through our insurance. We have insurance through Kaiser, which I guess is mostly like a West Coast thing in the U.S. But at the same time as like trying to get the ball rolling on like my transition, I also tried to get the ball rolling on the rest of my mental health stuff. And so it was actually technically faster for me to get started on HRT than it was to actually get medication for my ADHD. And like we're doing all like the phone screenings and doing the questionnaires, and I can tell that the person in charge of doing my phone screening is getting progressively more annoyed with me because they ask a question, the fucking annoying thing of always, sometimes, never, most days, or whatever, for like the
Hate
questionnaire, right? And I'm like, what do you mean I'm discouraged by my inability to meet my goals? What, like when? Like when though? And they're like, no, don't think about it too hard. Just give an answer. And this just keeps happening. And so we get like halfway through the questionnaire. They're like, I understand that this is going to be a little bit of a complicated process for you, but I have a bunch of people that I need to get through. I just need you to answer the questions. This is not going to affect your diagnosis, I swear.
It sounds like how my doctor dealt with me my first appointment. Like, we've got a lot of things to get through. We need to get focused.
Like, we must have been like 15 questions in out of 60 or whatever, and she is like, yes, there's definitely at least ADHD going on here. It's a foregone conclusion, but I can't submit this until all the questions are answered. So we fast forward to the actual like in-person meeting with my psychiatrist, the last like meeting before actually giving me a prescription for something, and she's like talking about my family history and asking questions, and she asks, what did she ask? She asks, so what is something that you are hoping that the ADHD medication is going to treat? And the example that I tend to go with is I work as a fitness coach, and unfortunately I'm capable of either correcting your exercise form and giving you cues to fix the movement in real time, or I can tell you how many reps of the exercise you have performed. I cannot do both. And without like even taking a pause to process that, she just looks at me and goes, are you sure that's the ADHD or maybe the autism? And we hadn't tested for autism yet.
And of course, with autism, it's not like you can just take a pill.
Right. So unfortunately, neither Adderall nor the slow release form of Ritalin that I'm on have cured that one. So it's simply a disclaimer I have to give my clients, like, look, do you want me to fix your stuff, or do you want to know how many you've done? I would love to
Like,
be
can
able to
you
tell you
count?
both.
Yeah.
But now the problem is the JoJo's theory of stand users is beginning to apply, because 3 of the last 5 clients that have come my way have been millennial women recently diagnosed with ADHD and potentially somewhere else on the spectrum. So my people have found me.
Yeah.
They're just drawn together. It's great.
Just like trans people.
Yeah. You just, the more of us you put together, the better it gets. Like Voltron.
Yeah. It's the psychic link.
And we've got it, and it's so strong.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your story of, I guess, finding yourself? You said you realized that you were trans like 20 months ago.
Yes.
How did that happen?
So the last incident that made it click into place was an odd burst of gender euphoria that was sent my way when my wife and I were getting ready for bed. So we've settled into the blankets. There was like a noise outside that had spooked Dixie, our corgi, who has for some reason not made her way in here yet. But something had spooked her, and Melissa, my wife, was like trying to soothe the dogs, and she's like, "No, it's okay, Dixie, you're a good girl." And then to make sure that both dogs are getting equal treatment, she goes, "And you too, Abby, you're a good girl." And then just like jokingly go, "What about me?" And she goes, "You're a good girl too, I guess." Burst of euphoria followed by dread. And it's like, oh
shit.
Oh no, oh, that's what these are. Which then resulted in a fun little game of going back and examining everything that has ever happened in my life, ever going, no, there weren't any signs. There was no signs. There were signs. There were a lot of signs.
M. Night Shyamalan strikes again.
Oh,
Yeah.
I started to put together a timeline of these signs, and the first one is at like age 4. For some reason, I had to wear a polka dotted dress for some church event at age 4, and that registered as, this is fine and good and normal. Data point number 1. We go 3 more years forward. My parents were like huge nerds for their time. So like they had an Atari 2600. They were in regular Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. So I had access to all of the AD&D, D&D, AD&D, and AD&D second edition manuals. And so like 7 or 8 year old me is reading through the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I like reading it chapter by chapter, like, a normal 7-year-old child does. And I get to the section on magic items, and then in the section on magic items, they have a section on cursed items, and we get to the entry for the Girdle of Masculinity/Femininity, which if for some reason there are people in your audience who don't know what that is or does, it is a cursed belt that appears to be a girdle of giant strength, which would increase your strength score. But upon putting it on, 90% of the time, it takes whatever your gender is and flips it in a binary fashion to whatever the opposite of your character's gender would be. 10% of the time, it removes your gender altogether. I didn't care about that 10%, but I was like, well, that doesn't sound like a curse. Seems like it'd be pretty okay. We're not going to process this data point for another 30.
That is part of the backstory of a lot of trans D&D players. You're not the first person ever to say that.
I was just like, that seems nice. Then it gets like a little bit blurrier as we go through like my like later childhood, early preteens, where it's just like the characters that I gravitate towards and imprint on from fiction and video games are not the male leads. It is typically femme supporting cast members. The most frustrating one is from the Turf Academy series, where I always felt the strongest connection with the brunette, potentially autism-coded know-it-all. Instead of what should have been the thing, because we have like a useless protagonist character who has black hair and glasses and doesn't fit in with their peers. No, I'm the nerdy girl. This doesn't click. Then we get to the teen years, and in the early 2000s, having access to the internet is a mistake. But
fair.
So we have unmitigated access to the internet, and there's a program that's kind of making its way through my other computer science friends at the high school called iDoser. And iDoser is, in concept, a little like obnoxious sound generator, but the obnoxious sounds are specifically meant to trigger like brain synapses or brain waves for the purpose of eliciting like a particular response. And like the most common and popular ones are, these binaural audio tones will like give you like a weed high or a cocaine high. But then there were additional ones that are like, this one will make you a girl, this one will give you tits. And I was like, I'm going to listen to those. It would be funny.
They don't work.
Unless. And so, again, data points that really should have clicked much sooner. This is just like, it'd be pretty funny if it worked. We're not going to examine that further. But then also, like, then falling into like a little rabbit hole as I get to my late teens and early adult years of like other forms of audio hypnosis with the same effects listed on them. And for some reason, having just a little hint of disappointment. I guess this didn't work either. Oh, well, back to my life. Then we get into the early years of the fitness bit. So we get to October of 2010. I am a 375-pound computer science major who works for an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet, and the rest of my time is like eating, sleeping, and playing World of Warcraft. One of my rape guild buddies drags me out to lunch with him one day and informs me that he's found out that he's gone from borderline diabetic to like full-blown type 2 diabetes. And assumes that since I am, 5'10", 375 pounds, that if I'm not there myself, I will be shortly. So I get drafted into being his diet buddy. This starts a whole ball rolling on a bunch of fitness stuff, but as I get like further and further actively into fitness, that's when there's like a weird disconnect that starts to happen. So like I am gym maxing, I'm like obsessively dieting, and there's a period where like the obsessive dieting is so bad that I would go to family gatherings with like a digital kitchen scale so that I could weigh out my portions of things. Again, like a perfectly normal neurotypical person, and definitely not some form of, at this point, undiagnosed autism and ADHD. It's fine. But as I would make visible progress, I would see my reflection in the mirror, and there was always this alien disconnect because the voice in my head would process that as, oh, hey, they're really starting to make some progress. Their shoulders are getting bigger. They, them, that person that is separate and alien from me. And I just thought that, I don't know, maybe it's just body dysmorphia because, my brain is still maybe used to being the 375-pound version of me. All of these data points just sort of click into place as it goes, oh, it was dissociative dysphoria. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that term until some number of months ago. From then, it's starting to pick up on like small bits of like odd euphoria that would come up. So we get to like 2016 and Face app makes its way through. And everyone's going, wow, this thing will do some stuff and make the girl version of you. And I saw the girl version of me and I had two responses to it. One is, she's not bad. I'm not mad about this until we get to the chest hair, at which point then the second response is, well, that's cursed. Because it's this, but then until we had laser to deal with it, it was just brrr. So like the Face app version of me like clicked as like a data point, and I kept that picture on my Instagram account. I didn't just like delete it and like throw it into the void. I kept it around for some reason. And so that sort of like started to put a pin in it. The next big like euphoric burst was I got some stuff off of Etsy for wifey for Hanukkah, and at that time she and I had relatively like we could wear each other's jeans, and so in order to like make sure that the skirts that I got her fit, I put them on, and I put the clip of this one on TikTok before, but like I put the skirt on, and again that was another one of those like big points of, hey, this is right and good. And I even say so in the video where I'm like, well, if she doesn't like it, I guess I make it work. Mm-hmm. Just another bit of, we're just going to put a pin in that. We're not going to process this for another 2 more whole years. And then we have the period of like, I'm finally starting to engage with TikTok as a thing because like I'd already felt like I was worried that I was at that, like, I'm too old to adopt new software and technologies. Cause like Snapchat and me are very, very hit and miss. But then like TikTok was starting to get more and more popular, and it's like, okay, I'm going to engage with TikTok. This is gonna be fine. I'm gonna adopt this new software. I'm not too old. And then of course, by the virtue of like the friends that I have, because I have a lot of queer friends, many queer friends, many trans friends. So the sort of content that starts filtering its way to me and is shared with me, like, oh, look at these trans memes. Oh, hey, there's some informative stuff. I'm going to be such a good ally. I'm going to learn all of these terms. And yeah, this is relatable memes. And these are relatable. And this is funny. It's definitely not me. It doesn't apply to me. But it's good for me to have these to share with people in case they do.
The old TikTok diagnosis.
Meanwhile, the narrator, little does she know.
That was actually a question I had, is like, at what point were you aware of transness existing in general?
So one of my first girlfriends after high school So at this point, we'd already gone through the massive weight loss, and we'd like started to gym. And so, courtesy of 4chan, we'd started to get into lifting things up and putting them down. That's a whole separate adventure. We'll talk about that later, probably. But some of the people that I LARPed with, there were a couple girls that I was prospectively courting, but they always spent time together. And it had turned out that one of the two girls was a trans woman, and no fucking idea, because I don't have a fucking clock mechanism, but that would have been, 2008? 2008 would have been
a while.
Yes. Okay, so growing up in Southern Oregon is really, really interesting, because in some ways they are extremely regressive, but then if you get over to Southern Oregon University is one of the most progressive schools in the United States, and I believe they still have that title. So, like, the Vampire the Masquerade LARP group that I was with at the time was run by a mix of people that did student government at SOU and also that ran the Queer Resource Center at SOU in 2007. And so a bunch of my friends through that were all over the Rainbow Mafia. And like there was
in the vampire role-playing group.
Oh
yes,
my
I
God,
know.
I'm
Who
shocked.
could imagine? So like
So
in the LARP group in 2008, there are a group of Brujah that are having a conversation about neo-pronouns in Southern Oregon in 2008. So I don't know if you've been exposed
2008
to
is wild.
Right. So a lot like the idea of like, well, for people that don't necessarily identify with any part of the binary, maybe they're comfortable with Z's or Z's, M, etc. So getting exposure to that as far back as then probably did wonders for de-radicalizing me, because I grew up in a Mormon household.
I was wondering when this would come up.
Oh, yeah. So it's real wild. There's like, I feel like my life story is like one of those things where you are never going to guess the next plot point. But like, there's this block of time in my life where there's a big gap in my pop culture window, at least as far as music goes, because the only radio that I had to listen to was like a really, really shitty alarm clock radio, and for some reason it lost access to FM radio. But I was able to get AM radio to work on it after I popped it up and started playing with the copper coil, a thing that perfectly normal neurotypical
She's
children
a smart woman.
So, no, I wouldn't go that far. I would not go that far, because the same impulse that led to me getting AM radio working also led to me disassembling one of those plasma globes so that I could poke the electric coil on it directly, because it tickled when it went zzz on my finger. So
neurotypical.
Perfectly normal behaviors. It's fine. But what I got was access to AM radio, and I had found one station that was doing like radio dramas. So like, oh, this is really cool. And then at night, they talked about paranormal stuff and conspiracy theories. But on the weekdays, in between all the fun things, it was Dr. Laura Schlesinger, Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh. So late middle school me into early high school me is radicalized by the only radio station that I listen to, where I get to have all sorts of fun stances fueled by my Mormon background and Rush Limbaugh, which are like, you know, if you think about it from a certain point of view, gay people are sexually arsler.
I do have a follow-up question from before. When you were courting a trans woman and you found out she was trans, like, were you cool with that?
Yes.
That's awesome. I love that.
Like, that came as a surprise to the other girl who decided she liked me more. But she's like, wait, you would have totally dated a trans girl? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, neat. To this day, she is one of my best friends, and now she is also one of my wife's best friends. If we want to talk about data points that also came up after transitioning, I'm still really good friends with all but two of my ex-girlfriends. And
that's very lesbian coded.
I was gonna say,
like one of them, I would still actively be friends with, but she doesn't have an online presence, so there's no way to reach her. The other one was just a case of the gap in our maturity was insurmountable. So I've never had a bad breakup, but it was the first time that it was like, we are not compatible. To your friends, please take care of her. She's going to need all the help that she can get, but I can't be part of this. I have to go. But all the rest of them, we are real good friends to this day. And several of whom are lesbians. And so while we dated, it always seemed like I was an exception, but it turns out I was a pre-order. And they shared that sentiment when I came out to them. They're like, of course you're a woman. Why do you think we dated? Or, as one of them put it, well, yeah, you've always been a sapphic. I'm like, train of thought gone. It's gone.
You were talking about how you were pre-red pill, red pill.
Oh, right. So pre-red pill, red pill. So at this point, we're in like the extremely early 2000s. Yeah, it would have been around 2000 to 2001 that I got access to AM radio. There was a few things that may have happened in a historical capacity that may have made it so that listening to conservative talk radio may not have resulted in a healthy human being. But thankfully, the first thing to start chipping away at that red pilling was being part of the speech and debate team, and also part of theater.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, right. So we take this neurodivergent child who has just been force-fed all of the worst opinions you've ever heard, and then have them gravitate towards, well, these will help me learn how to people better. So, theater is fun, and speech and debate is fun, and maybe I can even talk about some of those conservative talking points in speech and debate. What could possibly go wrong? So it turns out the format that I was best at in speech and debate was what do they call it? They called it radio. So imitation talk radio was my format of choice. I did pretty well at it. But there were other people on the speech and debate team and also in theater that were alphabet mafia. And they're like, your stance is stupid, that's bigoted, and you've got some learning to do, child. So that started the process of de-radicalizing me. And then as I start to go from there, so we go from like red pill to enlightened centrist. Then moderate-leaning liberal, courtesy of starting to get more information and hearing more viewpoints from the people running student government and the Queer Resource Center, and realizing, oh, wait, no, there's a whole bunch of this shit that is actually, like, a bunch of the things that are being legislative are actively hurtful to my friends. Definitely just my friends. I'm definitely not a part of the community, but I'm friends with the community, so it's important to me. Oh, God. Rewinding to slightly before that, I was still also actively attending seminary because I got, high school credit for that. So the straw that broke the camel's back on that one was when the Mormon Church was very, very actively spending a bunch of money and advertising and lobbying against the gay marriage bill. And just really stuck in my craw because it kept coming up during seminary. And I was just like, wait, but I thought the teachings were that we were supposed to be relatively non-judgmental, and like these are just people living their lives, and a bunch of them were my friends in theater.
We have a lot in common here. I was working for a church during like the Prop 8 era that was like actively campaigning against it, and it was a huge thing.
I remember you mentioned that in a previous episode. I was like, I wonder what church it was.
We get very into it in another episode.
Oh, good.
Can I test my Mormon knowledge and see if I can define seminary?
Sure.
So seminary is like a school credit Bible study that you usually have to do in order to go on your mission or get a temple recommend, which is like the ultimate level of full Mormon priesthood, which if you were not out as trans yet, that would have been probably a goal that at least your family wanted you to.
Oh, yeah. So I was in the Mormon church long enough to actually receive both the Aaronic priesthood, which you get like as a teenager, and then at 17 to 18, they confer upon you the Melchizedek priesthood. I'm the most dangerous thing the church has ever seen. I'm a woman with the Melchizedek priesthood.
But you didn't get your second anointing, I'm assuming.
That one, that's a term I'm not familiar with. There may have been some changes in the LDS church since I haven't been part of it.
You've got to be friends with the the top 12 in order to get a second anointing.
Oh, yeah, no, that shit's not happening. That's definitely not happening for me. For other data points that really should have clicked along the way, being an active member in the Mormon church, feeling that I always had a lot more in common with the Relief Society than I had with the Elders Quorum. And the Elders Quorum is where they put all of the adult men, and the Relief Society is where they corral all of their women so that they can talk about casseroles and centerpieces and home decorating, wear dresses because no pants allowed. And again, data points that should have clicked. No, it's just because my mom's a very good hostess and homemaker.
Yeah, and you just respect your mom so much.
I do. I learned a lot from her. She taught me how to cook and how to talk with my hands and how to repress. Oh, wait. Oh. Thankfully, nobody in my family is active in the Mormon church. So mom was never baptized into the church because she likes to smoke, and that's a big old no-go.
Oh, yeah.
Dad was disfellowshipped from the church for adultery. So that didn't go well for him. My sister married into a born-again Christian family, and thankfully that eventually ended. So she's finally living like her best life. And yeah. So thankfully I don't have to deal with the direct Mormonism of it all, which is good, because now the part of me that has been aggressively radicalized to the left is aware that the Mormon church is a really, really, really ugly multi-level marketing scheme with aggressive, unmitigated late-stage capitalism issues.
They're multi-billionaires.
It's extra fucked up. We should move to happier topics. Fuck that church.
Yeah. Speaking of happy topics, let's talk about your wife.
Yeah, how did you meet?
Yeah.
Through
we want to know all about her.
through OkCupid of all things. So we met through a dating site, and she messaged me first, which yay. Because I was too intimidated because girl pretty. But she messaged me, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And I had the correct answer, of course, which is 42, the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And the fact that I responded with that, with no hesitation whatsoever, is what inspired her to go, okay, we should continue this conversation. So she and I start chatting through this app back and forth pretty much for several hours a day for the next 3 weeks straight before we finally decide, hey, maybe we could do a date thing. We could meet. So we have our first date at a mall that no longer exists because it went bankrupt a few years ago, thanks to the death march of capitalism. But we got together at a little build your own salad place, because unfortunately we're in the dark times of at that point Brooke's obsessive dieting phase. So it's no, it's fine. There's options. There's tasty salad things. It's fine. We don't have to just stay here, but we're going to start here. This is the food that appeals to me right now. And so then we sit there. We're chit-chatting for several hours, having a good time. I am still incredibly intimidated because this gorgeous woman has decided that she thinks I'm interesting enough to continue this conversation with. And she's at this time, she's finished up her second bachelor's and is about to start the process, and is starting the process of working on her master's in forensic science. This will be relevant later. And so, yeah, we really, really hit it off, so much so that, we proceed to leave the lunch place and, meander through the mall and find ourselves making out on one of the benches in the food court. Which results in us getting politely shooed away by one of the security guards, because you two can't do that. There are children in the mall. That's fair. So that's how we met. After our second date, in true, at that point, unknown lesbian fashion, I make a response to a thing, and the next words out of her mouth are, marry me. So, borderline instantaneous U-Haul lesbians, but we don't actually get married for another 6 years. We start cohabitating. Just at that point, just finances are a nightmare. She's still working on her school. I'm in a shitty Craigslist roommate situation, which got real scary because one of them decided that he wanted to start distributing coke. At which point I'm distribute. I need to leave. I need out of this situation yesterday. So then we have another impromptu move, which does actually have a U-Haul involved, into another Craigslist situation. And then eventually one of the rental properties that her dad has becomes available. And so we end up moving into that place together, and we're living together at that point for I think a little over a year before I finally have enough money saved up to actually get a what I feel is a reasonable engagement ring for her. And so then we get the ball rolling on that, and slightly more than 6 years after we start dating, we get married. That was a little over 5 years ago. As
Aw.
it turns out that my tranniversary and our anniversary share a month.
Oh, March is a big month.
It's a big month. A lot happened in March for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's wonderful, and her master's thesis is a thing that I get to take as a piece of great comfort, because whenever confronted with the arguments of just like transphobe bigots going, someday they're gonna dig up your bones and they're gonna know what sex you are. I'm like, one, I'm gonna be dead, asshole, so who cares? But two, I have 119 pages that I can print for you where the consensus of it is, sometimes. 65% of the time it works 100% of the time. It's more consistent with the corpses of children, but gets significantly less if the thing is older than a children. So no, they actually can't just tell from my bones. They also can't just tell, even if they get like a really solid DNA sample, they can't tell with at least as far as like a court of law is concerned, they cannot tell with a level of confidence that you can reasonably say guarantees in a court of law. So
That's interesting.
Eat shit, transphobes.
Just because of like mitochondrial DNA, and like there's like, I did 23andMe, and there's like, you only have this DNA. If you're AFAB, you only have this one, and if you're AMAB, you only have this one. I'm curious how that would work, because when they take your DNA, they know what your assigned gender at birth is, for 23andMe.
So the product that my wife works on specifically is called the Rapid Hit ID. It is like, the elevator pitch for it is a bit of hardware that makes the TV show CSI possible, where somebody can run a sample through a machine, have a conversation or a heart-to-heart with one of the other people in the lab that advances the plot, and somewhere between 5 and 30 minutes later, we've got a DNA sample process. The Rapid Hit ID actually kind of does that, although I don't think it gets it down to like 5 to 30 minutes. I think it's still like an hour and a half to like fully run and process a DNA sample, but that's way faster than it was before the Rapid Hit ID, because the crime labs are so backlogged that it would be like 14 to 21 days to get a sample back, which it's not great for the already bad carceral system to make people have to wait 14 to 21 days, but that's its own separate thing. So she spends a lot of time looking at chromosomes and chromosomal expression, and getting to talk about fun things like chimeristry, and people that have unusual conditions where they will be XY, but their gender will be a little bit more complicated, or their sex and gender will be a little bit more complicated than that, which once again means we come back to the 23andMe situation. No, it's not particularly good in a court of law, unfortunately. And there's no...
So your wife knows exactly why they don't test chromosomes in biology class. That's so cool.
Presumably. I mean, I might... At some point, she'll probably wander out here, and then I can ask her if she does have that answer off the top of her head, unless the response is she is very, very tired and we'll have to think about it, at which point I'll blather about it in Discord.
As far as I understand, it's just that people have atypical chromosomes way more often than you would expect, and so they don't do that in classes because they don't have the resources to deal with the repercussion of that, and they don't have the training.
Right. The problem that we get from that then is we have people like, it's basic biology. I'm like, no, it's complex biology, you ignorant fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, both the dogs. Hi, Dixie. Would you like to be cute and on camera? No, you
Dixie's
just want to sit
the
there and be
corgi?
She is the corgi. Dixie. Oh, there's a
She got a booty.
Dixie. Presenting one incredibly anxious corgo.
Look at her nose.
And
She
her
has such a good nose.
And her gorgeous eye makeup. I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
I'm so
Permanent
jealous of your
eyeliner.
eyeshadow and eyeliner. Yeah.
She's
So pretty.
beautiful.
She's an anxious little terrorist.
Me too,
Yeah.
Dixie.
Yeah. Are you going to jump down? Yeah, you're going to jump down. You don't want to be up there anymore.
Jump with those tiny little legs, lady. And that little stumpy butt.
Yup. Here she goes.
Melissa sounds so smart and so hot. Good for you. And good for her.
Do they not do chromosome testing in biology classes because there are too many abnormalities that can present in that? Basically, her best guess would be that it, like, if they're doing that and like something unusual came up, you would want like
A therapist, I think I heard.
yes, to be able to like, talk people through any sort of abnormalities that arose.
Yeah, so that falls in line with what I thought. Is like the people who would be helping the students with the testing would have no idea what to do with that if something came up.
Surprise, you have Kleinfelters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, speaking of Kleinfelters. So during the early years of my fitness journey, spending a lot of time in the fitness section of 4chan, which at least in the early years, so between like when I got there in like 2011 to about the midpoint of 2012, it was an almost emotionally mature section of 4chan of all places, where it's like a bunch of people that are like, yeah, so we're huge nerds and are probably neurodivergent, but also we're really, really into like fitness, so we're just going to make that our hyperfixation. So there was a weird emotionally supportive community on 4chan at the time. That has since been ruined because of the creation of Poll, but that's its own thing that was effectively the same effect that Ronald Reagan had on America, Poll had on the internet as we know it.
That man haunts me.
Yeah. It's fine. He's dead, and so is Henry Kissinger. So we're almost free. But
Kleinfelters.
as the influence of Poll began to bleed over into 4chan, and people like, it's something that I notice with any sort of online community, particularly ones where people get to be relatively anonymous, is you start off with the core group of people that have an interest in a thing, so they make like a general and they hang out there. Then you have new people that discover the general, and sometimes from like the original group of people, you razz each other because they're your friends, and so you tease your friends. But then we get newcomers to the thing, and they see that, oh, well, it seems that in order to fit in, then I also need to tease them, even though I don't know them, so I'm just gonna go off of statements that are already there, but I'm going to do it bigger because that's how they'll really know that I belong. So then this creates the second generation. So the second generation's here, the third generation sees, and then they have to fit in. So then they have to be the biggest, meanest and so on and so forth. So any community, especially on 4chan, just the longer it goes, the worse it gets from more awful people trying to fit in and trying to be the main character of a general thread. But there was one recurring person that I think still spends time in the powerlifting general there, which that's baffling. But for the longest time, anytime I would post anything, because of my interesting proportions, I would get referred to as Kleinfelters anon, because I have relatively narrow shoulder structure and I have an unusual ape index. So most people, wingspan versus height is relatively 1-to-1. I am 5'9" this way. I am 6'1" this way. And
Wow.
I have smaller hands than my wife does. And narrow shoulders. So I'm a slender man is what I am. Like, my hands while standing up basically reach my knees. This is, as it turns out, terribly, terribly disadvantageous for powerlifting and for Olympic weightlifting, but I like those things anyway. It's good for deadlifting. It's real good for deadlifting because I barely have to move the thing and I've already finished. But yes, so for the longest time they called me Kleinfelters. Now they call me more obvious slurs. So that part's not great. Still post
I did
there,
notice,
honestly.
because you've posted some before pictures, from my perspective, you've always had killer hips.
Yep.
Like, incredible hips.
Yeah.
Like, stunning.
So my biological mother has the women in my family have very, very strong bone structure. we are skeletal pairs.
Yeah, my doctor was like, after you're on T, your hips are going to get smaller. And I was like, hey, doc, I don't think they will, but it's really nice that you think that.
Yeah, as we know, the hormones in our 30s are going to have a massive change on the actual bones themselves. Oh, wait. No, not
No,
so
my growth
much.
plates they're done.
Oop.
But it was real
Thankfully-
sweet. It was sweet of him to be optimistic, but my hips don't lie and they never will.
Oh, okay, wait, hold on. We have a very cute going on here, so we're just gonna...
The anxious one.
Yeah.
Hello, pretty anxious one. You can't hear me, but I think you're pretty.
She's looking at me like, why? Why did thing move?
Mom, what are you doing?
And Abby, seriously, Abby, I want to know how you just acquired this eye scar.
She wants to be a lesbian coded D&D character.
I mean, she
that has a
basically...
fighting predisposition.
Like, she basically is. Abby has always been just like, no, it's a new woman has entered the house. I must put my paws right down the cleavage.
She's a tit girl.
She is. She loves putting her paws right in the boobs.
Stormy likes that too. My cat.
Very, very invasive of her mama. Or rather, of her mother and her mama. That's our way of differentiating when we need them to go to one of us. I am mother. She is mama.
We have Papa and Daddy here. Other
Good
question
system.
I just thought of. Is your wife, is she identifying as queer now and or did she always?
I think the most likely term would probably be heteroflexible, but with some leaning towards bi.
That's cute.
Yeah.
I'm just always so curious because like transitioning after being in an established relationship can certainly complicate things.
It got a little bit scary. I think with courtesy of TikTok putting me in front of like a bunch of like counselors and therapists and particularly couples counseling. And I did a video on this one too. That was the idea of attunement. And when I was starting the process of going through, like once it had clicked and I realized, oh God, there's some gender stuff going on. The initial responses were scary. And I think a big part of that stemmed from the worry that if I went through with all of these things, would I still want her there? And the answer, of course, is always a very, very firm yes. There's no part of the changing here that does not need the pretty bear. She said I'm also piss poor at communication.
Well, that's hard.
We're working on it. It's improving a bit, but it did result in some responses that were scary and at times hurtful, which then resulted in me kind of closing off. And regrettably, when I got the ball rolling on the transition, I withheld that from her. I did not divulge to my wife that I had started hormones until I think about 11 weeks after I had started hormones. But we had come back from an anniversary trip together a couple weeks prior, and it had just been really eating at me. And I had concluded that if there was to be any hope for a future, I had to be open and honest about all of the things. And she was justifiably pissed as hell because I had essentially made the decision to do a relatively major thing medically without even consulting with her about it. And so that was bad. That was a bad. I did a fucking stupid, and I maintain that I did a fucking stupid.
I did too.
Oh, good. Good news, honey. All parties are in agreement.
No, I did the same thing. And yeah. And we had a big fight over it as well. And then when I talked to my therapist about it afterwards, she's like, yeah, but given your history and like your trauma and like your whole journey and everything, she's like, it makes complete sense. It's what I would have expected you to do, which was like, but also like a little bit affirming too. Just like, yeah, it's natural. You're not like, it's like not ideal, but
great.
It makes sense that somebody would go that way. Yeah.
So was that fight the night that your wife was hanging out with our mutual friend?
Oh,
this feels like I'm just putting pieces together because I knew that like our mutual friend hung out with her in order to like provide moral support. And that's the night I found out that you were Robin.
So that was an unrelated one, but
okay.
Not unrelated. It was also like trans stuff related. Yeah. Cause like a lot of communication issues along the way. Yeah. I
feel very fortunate to not be in that situation, but if I had been in a relationship when this was happening, I probably would have also done the exact same thing. Like I have no judgment for either one of you because at the end of the day,
I have judgment for me.
I mean, you're allowed to.
Yeah.
You're allowed to. But like I would have probably done the exact same thing. I'm just very, very lucky that I wound up where I am.
Chris,
also, we're all very lucky that we're all currently where we are.
Yes.
Very.
It was kind of funny. So where like the very, very first inkling of healing began after that, while she was still actively and loudly angry at me. She had made the declarative statement that she had married, name that starts with a B, and not a Brittany. And then after things had like simmered and quieted down, I was like, for what it's worth, I wasn't even considering Brittany as a name. And she just kind of rolled her eyes and sighed. She's like, I'm sorry. I was just saying that to be hurtful. What have you been considering? I was like, I was kind of thinking Brooke. And she kind of sat with that for a moment. She's like, I think it really suits you.
That's so cute.
And that was like the first little cure light wounds on things, where the other big worry was that, again, I was going to go off and do this massive, I don't know, metamorphosis into a butterfly and not include her, for her not to be part of that journey. And she wants, to be part of the journey. And for there
She's
to be
your
communication.
co-pilot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, frankly, I'm her co-pilot.
That's fair.
I am a passenger princess. I am barely a co-pilot. I am, we're going through windy roads. I am on immediate Dramamine, or I will super bomb. It sucks.
Speaking of princess, I just now remembered I was going to say something sooner. But when you were talking about like wearing a polka dotted dress at church as a child, I guess I must have forgotten the whole point of our podcast and the fact that we're all trans, because when you were like, oh, and that was fine, I was like, oh yeah, she didn't know she was a woman yet. Like in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, she was wearing a dress at church. This makes perfect sense.
It's all, I mean, it makes perfect sense now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it probably should have been somewhat jarring. Like, when are you going to wear this?
My
Meanwhile,
inner
I'm like,
child
I
right
hate
now
pants.
is like, they let her wear a dress at church?
At Mormon church?
Crazy.
At Mormon church? That's that's super church.
I mean, at age 4, who can tell anyway? Actually, I might not even been 4. I may have been 3, like 3 or 4. I was a very small, and I to this day, I still don't know why I had to wear a dress to this event. No idea whatsoever.
Maybe it was 1920 and it was like back when you had to wear a dress until you're potty trained no matter what, and you just time traveled.
It certainly was not. It would have been 1990 or maybe it would have been 1991. It would have been 1991.
Okay, I was alive.
Oh God, the complicated family thing. Okay, so...
Oh, yes.
So, I have talked in Discord about my momses. None of them are lesbians, unfortunately, although I think my biological mother would be a lot happier if she settled down with just a real competent woman. But, I guess, did we do trigger warnings on here?
It'll be in
We have
the
a-
episode notes.
Yeah. We have a blanket trigger warning and we put like a timestamp with the general idea of what it would be once we're edited.
Okay.
So you're good.
Okay. So my biological mother had me at age 15 as the result of an involuntary violent crime. And I was carried to term for some fucking reason, because God, she had every right to not carry me to term. But she carried me to term. And then shortly after I was born, my grandparents basically immediately fell in love with me and wanted to keep me in family. And so at the time, her older sister, so my aunt, was wanting another kid, but was really struggling with the logistics of doing so. So I was very informally adopted in family to my biological aunt, who raised me, and I call her Mom. Since then, my biological mother has had 3 other children, more or less intentionally. One was like 3 years after I was born, and then the next one was 10 years after that, and the next one was 10 years after that. The one that was born nearest to me is moderate support needs, autistic, and paranoid schizoaffective in the 90s. So the tools were not in place for him to really have a successful run at things. And unfortunately, he is going to be in the care of the state probably for the remainder of his days. The next oldest child, the fact that we are siblings was never divulged to the oldest sibling. due to just there was no universe in which he would healthily process that data point. 10 years later, the next kid comes around. Well, it's a complicated thing, and we'll just tell them when they turn 18. Then another child was born. Also spectrumy, because we're all spectrumy. We got the pedigree. We got 3 generations with 100% track record of.
Yeah, it's genetic.
It's real. It's fun. We're so pedigreed that we have what is normally a recessive blood disorder called von Willebrand factor, von Willebrand disease. It is a typically AFAB exclusive form of hemophilia. It's normally recessive, but in our family, the girls got it. So yeah, maybe don't keep the bloodlines so pure, English people. It was a bad idea. But anyway, we don't want to have to go through this whole rigmarole with all of them as each one of them gets. So we'll simply wait until the youngest child becomes 18, and we'll tell everybody then. Everybody else in the family knows. Literally everybody else in the family knows. I found out when I was 8 because my great aunt was a genealogist for the Mormon church, and she loves nothing more than to let the cat out of the bag. So she brought my birth certificate when I was 8 or 9 when she came to visit my family. And took the time to show it to me privately. And oh, would you look at that? That's an interesting name that it says on the mother. Isn't that an interesting data point? Anyway, I'm gonna go talk to Renee.
What a sassy woman! Holy shit!
Like, my grandmother and my great aunt are a pair of mirror twins, so identical twins but flipped. Also, fuck their parents, because the twins' names are May Ellen and Mary Helen. Fuck those parents. They're awesome. But anyway, every interaction with great aunt is like interacting with like the mirror universe of any Star Trek character. She is just the evil version of grandma. So like, grandma is like this nice sweet homemaker, and this blah 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 blah. Meanwhile, her mirror twin is like chain smoker, has lived in Vegas forever. Just, it's like,
I dream to be that person.
You look like grandma, but you're definitely not grandma. Little sinister in there. But yeah, so she let the cat out of the bag to an 8 or 9-year-old me. This is not a good data point to give to an 8 or 9-year-old child. Like, she didn't want me? This isn't going to cause attachment issues in my life ever. I'm sure I'm going to process it in a totally healthy way.
There's no way you could have.
There's
no universe.
Right. Let's just dump this data point on the undiagnosed autistic ADHD child. What could possibly go wrong? Eventually, we got like a guest bedroom situation set up here, and the half-sibling most likely to handle it in a reasonable, normal way has at this point like turned 21 or 22. Still hasn't been told because, well, we'll wait till the youngest is. But like moves into the guest bedroom here so that they get like a little taste of like adult life and responsibility instead of living under the yoke of our shared biological mother, who is the only one of that generation of this family who got their shit together. So like she's made like reasonable investments. She's been a social worker for decades, and is in fact the union negotiator for social workers in this county. So
holy
like,
shit.
yeah,
Considering what she went through at 15.
Yeah, she's rad. Like, she's not perfect because, again, the spectrum comes for us all. But she's pretty cool, and like she's of that generation of which there are 4. She's the only one with her shit together, and unfortunately, yes, that includes the woman I call mom. There's a whole mess there, but that's a story for another time. But like, so yeah, Andy moves in here, and like we're doing another playthrough of Hades. I subject Andy to Gravity Falls because they'd never seen it before. So we have all of these things that have like a lot of themes of like family and secrets, and eventually I'm just like, okay, this is fucking stupid. Hey, and Andy is working through a degree in psychology, and they are just having a whole big anxiety spiral because they're going through like our family history of disorders and such, and they're going, oh god, the siblings on both sides of me. So I have one older sibling who is like moderate support needs, autistic, and then we're not sure where she's going to be categorized, but the next younger sibling also somewhere between low to moderate support needs, but at least the tools are there for like her to have help. So she's doing awesome. She's a cool kid. But like Andy's real worried about that. So eventually I'm like, oh, okay, there's another data point.
Mhm.
So then I bring Andy up to speed on that, and Andy like sits on that and goes, that makes a lot of mom's shit make a lot more sense, and it makes the timeline make a lot more sense, and her responses to like particular topics and things that she wanted to protect me from. So okay, we're going to sit on this data point, and I'm not going to tell mom that I know. I think it's real fun to hold the cards just for this one thing, because that woman thinks she knows everything, and I'm going to have just the one thing that she doesn't know. We're still sitting on that. Good news, Helena doesn't watch podcasts, or doesn't watch or listen to podcasts, so it's fine. We don't have to worry about that.
So
Literally
they handled it pretty well.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So there's this fun little trend that seems to be going on with my generation of the family, where the things and people that we needed in our life, we simply became. So I got into fitness work because I blindly and stupidly followed some rules for being a diet buddy and assigned some arbitrary rules onto myself. And by the end of it, sure, I lost 202 pounds in 53 weeks, but I also started having respiratory trouble. So then I realized it would be super cool if there was somebody in my circumstances that had somebody in their corner to help them and teach them things, so that they're doing it in a way that isn't going to give them respiratory trouble, and also isn't going to be like an asshole about it. So I get to take my desire to info dump and my desire to not be a dipshit and turn that into helping other people with their health and fitness goals. And
How's
that's
your breathing now?
It's way better. So a few things
Okay.
help. So the bigger reason that I was having the respiratory trouble, aside from the fact that I've always had like shitty lungs, because getting bronchitis and pneumonia multiple times before you turn 4 puts you on hard mode for the whole respiratory health thing. As does living with an indoor chain smoker, the woman I call mom, 2 carton a week habit for the last longer than I've been on this earth.
I feel better.
So, yeah, would not recommend if you're a member of the Shitty Lungs Club. Incidentally, the anthem of the Shitty Lungs Club is, so the dietary restrictions that I was told by my forced diet buddy, is that we're going to count our carbs and we're going to keep our carbs under 100 grams of carbs a day. I tacked on 2 additional rules arbitrarily that had nothing to do with anything. 1, when I hit my carb limit for the day, I was done eating for the day. And 2, I was not going to abuse the existence of low/zero carb food. So even though the me of the past could eat just a 2-pound block of cheese as a snack, and probably still would, frankly, I was not going to do that. So you take a person whose average intake was 18 to 24,000 calories a day, and you chop a 0 off of that, lo and behold, drastic weight loss rapidly. And then as things started to plateau, my brain went, well, I guess if the rules worked to here, then we simply just make that even smaller. So maybe only 80 grams of carbs a day. Well, now maybe 50 grams of carbs a day. At that point, I'd also started to ride a shitty department store mountain bike to and from work at the Chinese buffet. So it started at 1.5 miles from mom's. Then I moved in with some friends and it became 2.5 miles. Then I moved in with a girlfriend and it became 4.5 miles. That relationship did not go particularly well, but my friends are super cool, so it got to be 2.5 miles again. Then I moved in with another girlfriend and it became 9.5 miles, 5 days a week. And by that point, I'm eating now maybe 1,800 calories a day. So it turns out that if you are still not eating enough to sustain what remains of your body and the activity that you're going, that energy still has to come from somewhere. So your body gets to go, well, there's no more fat to lose. There's not much muscle left to lose. What do you think? Organs? Organs are muscle, right? So respiratory problems and just having really, really easy access to getting very dizzy became a thing. And that's when I was like, maybe I should learn a little bit about this whole thing. And then I was like, wait, there's science behind diet and exercise? I thought fitness was decided by the shadow council of super jacked people that just said this is what's healthy now. And that's why things kept changing. No, it turns out it's actually still just capitalism. But the fact that there was actual science behind it, and as I stated earlier, I was originally a computer science major, but knew that if I continued on as a computer science major, I was going to self-terminate. And so then it was like, okay, 3/4 of an associate's degree in computer science, binned. Kinesiology and nutrition, let's go. And so yeah, I got into fitness work. So that's how I ended up in fitness work. Andy, the awesome NB half sibling, has received a lot of help from mental health professionals, psychiatrists and therapists and such along the way, so that they want to be able to provide that for other people. So that's what they're going to school for. On the side of the family that is with mom and not biological mother, I have a whole variety of step siblings, I guess. And my brother's an asshole. No notes. He's an asshole, but his kid turned out really, really cool. His kid is trans-mask, and is specifically, after getting just a really shitty response from my brother, his father, on the subject, was like, okay, well, I am going to do what you told me, and I'm going to go to school. I'm going to major in gender studies. I'm going to become a counselor and a nurse practitioner, and I'm going to provide aid and care for trans youth in need. Eat shit, Dad.
What a cool kid.
My nephew's so fucking awesome. It's great. And when I came out to that side of the family, my brother sent me a pretty, after asking for clarification, because I told him in Final Fantasy 14, because he was in my free company in Final Fantasy 14. So I just came out to my free company, and he's like, what do you mean by transition? Like, oh yes, I'm a woman. I'm on hormone replacement therapy and potentially other things to better facilitate that. Then I get this long paragraph on Discord from him that is basically just a hate speech sandwich, which is I love you, and then bigoted transphobic
I don't agree
stuff
with
in
your
between.
Choices,
Right?
And your lifestyle,
Right. It's like I'm gonna tell you this, and I said the exact same thing to my kid. You are never gonna be a real blah 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 blah. So I screen capped that and texted it to my nephew, and I was like, hey, if your dad said anything even remotely close to this to you, I am so sorry. That is fucking abominable. ... Am I to take this that I have a new auntie?
He sounds so sweet.
He's the best. He's the best boy. And so now there's a regular trip down here from where he's staying to come hang out here. This year we went to SF Pride together. I got pretty spectacularly sunburnt in areas that I thought I got sunscreen on, but did not. But yeah, so all of this to say that this generation of my family is we really needed a thing, we really needed a person, and we didn't have that, so we became it so that we could be that for other people. Maybe at some point we'll actually heal these generational curses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now coming out to all of my momses, when I came out to my biological mother, I was a nervous wreck, and she could tell that something was up. But they were like, hey, can we talk privately? And she's like, yeah, sure, cool. We sit down in the bed in one of the side rooms, and I lay it out there, and she's like, okay, well, thank you for feeling safe enough to trust me with that. Now, can you help take out the trash? It was just such a fucking nothing thing. And she's like, and then afterwards, if you want, we can look at some of the nail polishes that I have upstairs. So she's always been super cool about it. When I came out to mom about it, it was over Facebook Messenger, and I'm like, so yeah, I'm on hormone replacement therapy, and I'm a woman. And she's like, she leans forward. Why? And I'm like, to bridge the gap between my brain, my body, and my role in society. And she's like, well, fuck it. I've got one grandbaby going one direction now. One of my kids is going the other direction. As long as you two are safe and happy and figuring your shit out, fuck it. So those were the good responses from there. I told my stepmom, and she was hype about it. She was just like,
that's oof.
She's like, hell yeah. She's like, no, this is gonna be so great. You know, I'm so excited, and it's gonna be real great. And I want pictures, and your dream's gonna be so great. And don't worry about what your dad said. He's fucking stupid sometimes. Dad's response a little bit more on the side of things, which is, well, I don't know what to say to that. Like, okay, well, you could start with, you love me and I'm still your kid. It's like, well, I love my son and we'll leave it at that. I'm like, cool. He's slowly starting to come around. I assume because his wife, my stepmom, will ruin him otherwise.
She sounds better than he deserves.
Yes. We originally had a very rocky relationship. One, because I was super bummed that my dad was divorcing my mom for another woman. But also, her family is awful, and as a result, she was also awful for a long time until therapy, which did wonders for her. So after she became the healed version of my stepmom, it's been a significantly better relationship, especially after I came out, because then we get to have just like random girl talk together, and it's nice. My sister, my stepsister on mom and dad's side of things, also really cool. She was... I'd sent a selfie along with like wishing her a happy birthday in, it wasn't this dress, but it was another dress that I wore. And a similar, I hadn't started shopping at Torrid yet, but it was another push-up bra. And her response to the thing was, yeah, thanks for the happy birthday, but holy shit, did you get implants? And I'm like, no, I grew these myself. They're organic.
Yeah, if you can't afford designer, homemade is fine.
Right? And like on one, very, very, very flattering, I was like an A cup, but it was a push-up bra doing the most with what I had at the time. But like, if I decide to go down the route where I felt that nature stopped a little bit too soon, there is no universe where I'm going to drop breast implant money and stop at an A cup. Like, if you're going to pay for them, make it all right.
Yeah, give Amanda Lepore a run for her money.
But also, I love the assumption that in November, a time that is historically terrible for personal trainers, the idea that I would be making cosmetic surgery kinds of money while everybody is out for the holidays, because now there's no point in exercising because we're just going to eat. I'm like, no. Like, you can eat and exercise. That's kind of my shtick, actually. But yeah, so yeah, sister and I just babbling back and forth a handful of times a year, because she's recognized that the Oregon branch of the family is not great. There's a lot of not great, and the best way to get through it all is to avoid as much contact with it as possible. I love my mom, but like, it's good that there's a 500-mile buffer between the two of us. So that's that side of the family. Then we get to the in-law side, and that's where the responses are not great. Now, admittedly, they find out about it shortly after Melissa found out about it. So at that point, Melissa is still mad, and they are mad on her behalf. However, they've also never been super thrilled about me in the first place, because I'm not particularly ambitious. Ultimately, the list of complaints can be summarized as, I'm autistic and also a bitch.
So what?
So, right. So one by one, they all kind of take their turns having conversations with her that are like, hey, you could just get a divorce. A divorce? The worst of that flavor of it being her late father taking her out for brunch and extolling her on the merits of California divorce law, and that it would be much easier if we did it during the 4th year because it gets more complicated after the 5th year. And her just going, no, I no. Like, she fucked up super hard, but we're gonna try and make it work. She's going to therapy. We're gonna be more open on our communication, and we're not gonna have these sort of fuck-ups anymore. I have a little bit more faith in her than that. A little bit. A little bit more faith. She's reading smut right now.
Good for her.
It's in the plot building phase. Okay, it's in the plot building phase, she says. It's not.
Who
It's
cares
not just
if it's
smut.
in the smut phase? Live your life.
Hell yeah. Ben supports
Built that plot.
supports you 100%. Who cares if it's even smut? Live your life. Okay. But yeah, so she like fends all of that nonsense off. And then we get the next shot across the bow, which is a phone call to her from her dad that for whatever reason he Googled my chosen name, and that pulled up some very, very risque photos, which turned out to be thumbnails from some videos I put on TikTok. So there was a couple videos I put on TikTok that they were like, the camera's super zoomed in, so it's just like my collarbone, and it's just like me recording dumb thoughts that I had in the bathtub. There's nothing like actively promiscuous going on. It is collarbone up.
And you mentioned Hanukkah, so he's not Mormon.
No, I married into a Jewish family.
So why is he so bent up? He's not Orthodox though, right? Or he wasn't Orthodox?
No, but he was a boomer. So
that's fair.
And so like one of them was like an early iteration of me playing with some of like the makeup filters on TikTok, and there was one I think it's called Scarlet that I think it's about this shade of lipstick, but then like I do a much better job with my makeup than the filter does.
Yes, you do.
But so yeah, it's me like real early into my transition with a makeup filter on in a bathtub, which your average person can't tell it's a bathtub unless, say, they've done work on the house or they know that bathroom. We find out later that no, it actually wasn't my father-in-law that had done the Googling of my name. It was my brother-in-law. And his excuse was that, well, he was applying for jobs at a construction thing, and so he was just trying to vet out all the social media for anything that would be a problem. Like, no, you fucking weren't.
He doesn't share your name.
Right. One of my friends and clients is one of the golden boys at Meta. He's one of the few people at Meta that when another wave of like layoffs goes, he's not in the line of fire. They don't even do that level of social media vetting before hiring. The only people that I've ever heard that do was like a police department in Texas in 2013. That's the only thing that I've seen. So no, I'm pretty sure it turned out that my brother-in-law was looking for something to be pissed off about. And he found these risque photos of me on the internet. Ooh, it could get everybody fired or something. But anyway, this results in like my father-in-law calling my wife, and then she calls me in like a panic because, oh my god, there's these borderline pornographic images of me on the internet. What the fuck am I doing? Everyone could be in danger, blah, 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 blah. And so I go through my TikTok feed and I private / or delete the offending videos. And in a fit of just frustrated rage to the family group chat, I inform them that I have taken care of the videos in question. Thank you for your concern. This sets the ball rolling on what we are going to call the brother-in-law witch trials. So the series of accusations that are leveled against me in response to the content are that I am putting, risque, borderline pornographic material on the internet, and that I am potentially a risk to children because TikTok is an app for children. Because did you know that 25% of TikTok's user base is between the ages of 11 and 19? I do now, but guess what, fuckhead? Did you know that 49% of TikTok's user base is between the ages of 20 and 49? A set of data that includes my age? You're making a face. I didn't say any names. There are no names. Also, where the fuck is I gonna find a podcast? Can't read. I would like to amend for the record. I just said it's fine.
It's okay. Robin can edit it out.
They'll fix it in post. Can read. He's just an idiot. He's 8 months younger than I am, but he is so fucking boomer pilled. It is astonishing. But anyway, so yeah, TikTok is an app for children. I'm putting pornographic material on an app that children could see, and oh my god, they still haven't walked back this accusation, I might add. It's been 16 months. It's been 16 months since the accusation was leveled against me. They still haven't walked it back. But we continue the brother-in-law witch trials, which then just a series of petty complaints over the years. And if I took any complaint from him seriously, I would probably be better off self-terminating, because this is a man who, in response to the things that were going on at Activision Blizzard, I don't know if that's come up at all in like the amount of time that you spend on the internet, but there was
I'm aware.
Okay, there was a particularly egregious case while the state of California was investigating Activision Blizzard of a woman that had committed suicide during a work trip with her male superior as a result of extensive ongoing sexual harassment at Activision Blizzard. And the response from the brother-in-law to me pointing that out were that she was weak and stupid. So when I say that this man has the worst takes you've ever heard, I do not give a shit about this man's opinions about me.
Good, because you shouldn't, because you're awesome and he's an idiot.
Right. So he proceeds this like petty list of bullshit. I think that you talk about things that aren't relevant to other people's interests. No shit, I'm ADHD and autistic. Next thing. I feel like you don't lend enough hand at like family get-togethers. I am constantly asking, hey, can I get anything for you? Do you need me to get that for you? Do you need help with anything? Do you need me to prepare anything? Why? Because I'm my mother's child and she's a fucking Mormon hostess. So that one we just throw in the trash. And then when he ran out of those, then he started making up arguments that we've never had because they're not stances I take. I apparently had an argument with him about not liking big trucks. And here's the thing. I don't give a shit about people who own big trucks. I have no stake in that. I feel like people should have less automobiles, period. We should have better public transportation. But like, even if you don't have like an express utilitarian reason, if you just have the big kitted out truck because it makes you feel special or affirms your gender, more power to you. So there's no universe of discourse where I would have an argument where people who drive big trucks are bad and I think they should be that. No, that's not a stance I hold. But anyway, so this goes on for some time, and the only reason that that those conversations and witch trials stopped are because my father-in-law had a stroke and died. At which point now he's establishing himself as, well, now I have to be the big man of the family, which is stupid because he's got little itty bitty pee-pee energy, and my wife here is the man of the family.
Good for her.
Like, she is carrying this family by the seat of her scrot. It's great. She's awesome and way too competent for anyone's safety. And she literally does wear the pants. I hate pants.
Mm-hmm.
You look great in leggings, though.
Leggings aren't pants. They are underwear I can get away with.
Yeah.
Don't sexually harass the guests.
I'm asexually harassing the guest.
The rule of thumb is no, you're looking disrespectfully, and it's fine. Although she gets most of that honor and privilege.
I respect your relationship, your wife, and I just think you look great in leggings.
There's a lot of respect being leveled our way and your way, but also Ben just happens to also think in an asexual capacity that I look great in leggings. She raised an eyebrow and said, yeah, I do.
Now let's go through the employment statistics here. Do you have an ass that will or will not quit?
I have brought the ass to mechanical failure in squats, but it hasn't been in some time because I've over 13 years of lifting things up and putting them down. I'm pretty good about knowing, oh shit, I actually don't have it. So no, in fact, the ass is probably capable of quitting. It just chooses not to.
Your ass understands moderation.
No.
And you know what?
But my central nervous system
ass.
does. Well, my central nervous system, in a small modicum of self-preservation and auto-regulation in regards to exercise torment, does.
While we're on this weird side tangent, is it okay if I run to the restroom real fast?
Absolutely.
Oh, me too.
I need to piss. I need to piss so bad.
Have yourself
We should make a podcast about that.
Yes.
Hello, and welcome back to Talking Video Games. Have you heard about the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV? Oh shit, they're back. It has a free trial.
I can't wait to hear about this. Oh my gosh, I had the realization while I was peeing is that like tea blockers make you have to pee really, really bad, which means soon I'm gonna have to pee less. Right?
Okay, so that's not quite how it works specifically. The reason that
Damn.
people on spironolactone have to piss a whole bunch is because one of the things that it is what they call a potassium-sparing diuretic. So a diuretic by itself is going to flush a whole bunch of things out of your body, but it's gonna hold on to the potassium, but a lot of sodium is gonna be flushed out. So by the diuretic nature of it, much like, yay, Andy is gonna be back tonight. That means they're gonna see the leaves that Abby left on the bed. I'm sure it's fine. It's fine. It's a pagan-inspired decorative spread.
It was relaxing.
I beg to differ. You'll just have to gag me.
Ooh, horny.
Yes. I mean,
Can't wait for Robin to see this.
So, this year has really, really kicked off the big spike in just returning to reading as like a thing. What did it start with? It started with everyone in this household getting into the Dark Olympus series by Katie Robert. So it resulted in a whole bunch of us getting back into reading smut, basically. Which was a new journey for an estrogen-based machine version of myself. Getting into romance novels and such on an estrogen-based machine is delightful because... and also kind of oddly affirming because as I got further and further into, like, you know, lesbian rom-coms, the ways that the characters' bodies are responding and the way that they describe them are the ways that my body started to physiologically respond before I'd started reading them, after, particularly once we put progesterone into the mix. And so, like, it was very affirming because, like, oh, okay, so yeah, that's what these feelings are. Hooray, the books are affirming. And now since February, my reading list of sapphic rom-coms is, well, okay, mostly sapphic rom-coms with a small side tangent of just like general hetero smut, courtesy of, again, Katie Robert. As it turns out, in spicy books, I am much more emotionally invested in things that are going on in her perspective.
That's
For
fair.
some reason. And this was a trend that I'd already started to notice in the Katie Roberts books. I'm trying to reconnect again.
She somehow managed to break the internet with too much smut.
Communing with machine spirits to bring
You're
the
back.
data connect. I'm back. Okay. Aside from that, it has been like 93 sapphic romantic comedies, and they've just been delightful. Even if a bunch of them are formulaic, I don't give a shit because I found my people. It's also very reassuring to know that just a bunch of us are fucking oblivious. So, like, no, we're not like in a relationship. We're not even dating. It's just we spend all of our time together, and we just go out for food and spend a bunch of time shopping for an apartment together. And
Does this
Me
sound
and
familiar
Chris.
to anybody here?
oh shit, it was an exclusive relationship for 6 months straight. Oh. So no, I'm having a lot of fun in that, and eventually I keep telling my TikTok feed when I do a Babbling Brooke segment that I'm going to start a segment called Brooke Talks Book Talk, where I'm going to start actually talking about the books that I've read, but I'm too distracted by actually reading the books, so it's a little bit of a problem there.
Mhm.
That's amazing.
Do you have any good like book recs for like trans books with trans characters?
Here's where it gets real bleak. It's a real small selection available, and I haven't found. So okay, I have one recommendation. I haven't been able to read the whole thing yet because it's not available on the Kindle, and I haven't found any physical copies of it yet. But it is a graphic novel called Us. Yeah, it's called Us, and that strong recommendation.
Yeah, it's lovely.
I got to read the sample of it. I want to read the whole thing of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Come
there's
on over.
there's my trans recommendation.
Has your wife read it? Because
She
mine,
also
like-
hasn't, but it is definitely going to be up her alley because it's basically her perspective.
yeah, it'd be interesting to hear her perspective on it, because just the thought process where while her partner was like in the process of coming out or whatever, like the mental spirals that the main character goes through with a transitioning partner. She's like, there was so much in common.
I want to rec Super Late Bloomer by Julia Kay. It's from the perspective of the trans woman. I know you have my copy at your house somewhere. She's an illustrator, and she was talking about like her experience, like coming to terms with being trans and coming out. And even though it's from the trans feminine perspective, I felt so seen when I was reading it. I would literally bring it with me to therapy and be like, this is what I'm going through right now. And I would be like crying because I felt seen. It was so good.
Mm.
I have added a tab to my phone's web browser that is for Super Late Bloomer.
It's very good. My shout out to my ex Joe. He is a very good person, and I adore him because he gave me his copy because he knew I needed it.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
Good job, Joe, wherever you are.
He's in New York, and he's the reason why I met my husband, because he introduced me to a D&D podcast and said, I think you might like this. And then when we broke up, I was already in the D&D group with Chris, and then accidentally started dating him. So,
very important. Hold on.
And Joe accepts the credit for introducing me to my husband and is very, very proud of that.
Dixie has brought in an apple from the tree.
Oh.
And is
what a smart woman.
She learned from Abby. Dixie is very, very nervous about adopting new things, but eventually Dixie became the bravest little girl and has gone out and hunted her own apple instead of just stealing one of Abby's. So brave.
Smart woman.
She's
So beautiful. Brave. So strong. She learned it from mother.
Well, she learned it from her sister. In this case, normally what happens lately is Abby gets an apple, and then we'll just kind of sit there with it. Dixie gets annoyed, and the resolution is that I'm to come in and inflict radical apple communism and split the apple in two, and then give each of them a half of it.
You are a communist, so...
Mm-hmm.
All right, where else are we going to go? Because we are so all over the place in a very fun way.
I do best with the question format. Self-guided tours, not my strong suit.
Robin, do you have any questions?
So the one thing that I do want to talk about that we didn't get to yet is, so you're our resident muscle mommy, first of all.
I would like to state for the record that I see myself as a muscle mommy in progress. I feel like I will require significantly more muscle mass to really truly ascend to the rank of muscle mommy. At this point, I identify as more like the muscle big sister, radical muscle auntie.
The important thing is we identify you as muscle mommy.
It's fair.
Yes,
it's fair.
You
it's
are
true.
my muscle mommy.
It is your podcast, so I don't make the rules.
We hereby designate. You designated yourself as Brad, so we have to designate you as muscle mommy.
That's fair. That's fair.
I wanted to talk, and we've talked about this on the Discord a lot, I think, but I wanted to talk on the podcast about like the overlap between gender dysphoria and euphoria and everything when it comes to like building muscle goes. Because I know a lot of us, including myself, like I haven't worked out in a long time because I became paranoid that I would get any muscle.
So this is going to tie back into I got into reading lesbian rom-coms, and now I have to find the screenshot. It's in here somewhere. But there was
so relatable.
There was a book that I swear, like the overlap between the protagonist of that book and myself was so strong that I briefly considered the notion that she had started writing lesbian romance novels under a pseudonym, because the thought processes and the history and like the kind of things that the protagonists were doing were literally things I said, did, and like would occupy the time. So like even specifically like while they were still working at the front desk of a suspiciously 24-hour fitness-like gym, would spend just a whole bunch of time idly doodling their dream gym layout if they ever got a location of their own. It is from a book called Love at First Set by Jennifer Dugan. And she's presently drunk in a bathroom giving a pep talk to a girl that was crying in there and getting to talking about her work. But anyway, she goes, Look, you gotta understand, I really want this to work out. It's not just a paycheck to me. I actually fucking love gyms. I love the people. I love helping them when they get healthy and stay healthy. I love when women come in and they think they can't lift heavy, and then they see me lifting, and I don't know, like, you can be strong and feminine if you want to be, right? It's not either or. Maybe some people don't think this is hot, but it is. Strength is hot. Strength isn't just for dudes, and I'm tired of feeling like a traitor for skipping the elliptical and grabbing the weights. I want to foster a robust women's lifting program, but I'm not into women's only gyms. I get why people do like that, but I want it to be a safe, welcoming space for everyone. I don't want to feed into the idea that we have to hide ourselves away from the guys. And this is a rant that I've had with a number of my clients, both before and after transitioning, in some capacity, where it's like, there's nothing that says muscle cannot be feminine. We have muscle mommies for a goddamned reason. So, no, in fact, for like odd data points along the way for workout programs that I have tried, and in fact have once again gone back into doing as like a segment on my channel for a hot minute, was specifically a program called the Female Physique Competitors Templates from a company called Renaissance Periodization. So it's workout programs designed specifically for physique competitions in bodybuilding for women. And even before transitioning, that was the version of the template that I gravitated towards for reasons.
No one will ever know why.
No. It's a big mystery, and we will never truly unpack it.
No.
But anyway, so yeah, no, even once I got the ball rolling on transitioning, lifting things up and putting them down is such a part of like my kind of core identity and like things that I enjoy doing, because like I mentioned earlier, I'm unfortunately not a masochist. I don't enjoy the feeling of exercise while doing it, and I don't enjoy the soreness that comes after doing it. But I suspect this has to do with the neurodivergent part of me. I'm a numbers girly. I like data. I like number go up. I like, okay, I could do this big a number on this before. Now I can do this big a number. The circumference measurement of my bicep is increasing. The circumference measurements of my butt is increasing. Things are going great. I like numbers. And so lifting things up and putting them down on a somewhat structured basis, because unfortunately sometimes the ADHD takes the reins of what exercises I'm going to do instead of what the spreadsheet said I'm supposed to do, is real big important for me. And it's been really interesting seeing the sort of change in trends in my clientele as a fitness coach, because like after we came back from COVID lockdown, the vast majority of my clients were 20-something to 30-something software engineers. I would have training sessions with a woman on occasion, but for the most part, mostly dudes. And lately, there's been a big uptick in the number of women who work with me. And it's been like really comfy and affirming, being one, recognized as, okay, she is separate from the herd of those over there. And also, like, the conversations that we have during our training sessions are the kind of conversations that people have with their hairdresser. We spill tea. It's great. It's nice to be able to provide a safe set of guidance and like friendship for people that have something about their body that they would otherwise feel very unsure or insecure about. And I am very happy to get to continue to do that.
Do you have any tips for any trans femmes out there who want to build muscle without like losing any HRT effects? You know, like maintaining the titty?
Good news. As long as you're eating, and for the love of God, if you are trans femme and you're trying to get that feminine curvature and install things, you have to eat to gain weight.
Sound like my doctor.
I don't know if I said this while we were recording, but fat redistribution while transitioning in either direction is not a case of taking the fat and putting it somewhere else. It is still a case of your body has to burn down the old energy stores, because that's what fat tissue is. It is a store of excess energy that has been acquired from like food. In order for there to be redistribution, one, you have to burn down the existing stores of things that were biasing your previous hormonal profile. and you have to gain new fat stores in areas that are now going to be biasing your new hormonal profile, which means that if you go on HRT, even if you go on a shitload of HRT and you are going through and doing everything that you can possibly chemically, if you are still not eating enough for your body to go, oh, hey, I have excess energy to store, there's not going to be that feminine curvature installed because you can't make something from nothing. So, if I had to give one piece of big related advice to trans femmes that would like to add curvature, girl, you gotta eat. And I know it's scary because we have this massive stigma in society in regards to fat people. Fat is not a punishment for enjoying things. Fat is not a consequence. Fat is not a measure of your morality, your value, your virtue, your anything. It is simply a means of storing energy in your body for consumption later. That's it. It's morally neutral. It's okay for there to be fat.
Mm-hmm.
I would like... You know what the fucked up thing is? I don't want that to be amazing. That should be the goddamned bar. That
I
should
agree.
be the bare fucking minimum. And instead we're like, I'm some sort of fucking fitness radical. It's weird. For other stuff, like if in addition to like the fat redistribution that is happening over time, things that are going to help with perceived widths are going to be making sure that your exercises focus on increasing mass in the areas that you are trying to increase size in. This means that if you want to have bigger hips and ass, you have to do things that are going to be physically strenuous on those for a consistent period of time. And what gets to be the even bigger bummer is if you've shut off your testosterone, it is going to be a much slower process of actually adding new muscle mass because testosterone was really helpful for adding it. And without it, it gets a lot harder, unfortunately.
Good news for me.
Yeah. Next step, Ben, jacked, and tan.
I'll never be tan.
Jacked and pale. So yeah, those are going to be the big ones. There's a channel on, I know she has a TikTok and I think she might also have a YouTube, but for like people, because like you cannot simply follow the videos that I'm putting out there and go, oh, just copy Brooke's workout. Fucking no. Do not go from I have never exercised in my life to I'm going to take up a women's physique competitor workout. That is a spectacular recipe for burnout and also potentially injury. No. But if you are just getting started out in fitness, there's a channel called Body by Daddy, and their channel's whole shtick is putting together workout routines for people anywhere along the gender spectrum that are going to be affirming for whatever shape they're hoping to attain. So if you're trans masc, they have ones that'll help give you, that nice boxier frame. If you're trans femme, they'll have ones that are going to focus on trying to build a little bit above, but mostly below. And she has them for stuff for like people that can't afford to go to a gym or are otherwise feel unsafe in a gym setting, and stuff for people that do have access to a gym. So strong recommendation for Body by Daddy. Also, she is hilarious and she invented the lesbian curl, so it's important.
I need to check her out. I'm so bad at TikTok. I only have a TikTok because of this podcast, and Robin was like, you gotta get on TikTok, Ben.
TikTok's great.
Yes.
It's a good community.
Yeah, I'm really
TikTokers.
excited. I love the comments that we get on the Brat posts. So I need to post my tee shot, which I asked Chris to film, and I said don't get anyone else's face in, and then he didn't even get my face in, but that's fine.
Perfect. I've been informed on some of the other Discord servers because I was going. So apparently people want to hear me talk, and so I'm going to be recording as a guest speaker on a podcast. And they're like, "Oh, you're the reason the Brat podcast keeps coming across my TikTok feed," because I'm like, "Yep, we're going to reshare that and comment on that." So yeah.
Thank you for the algorithm boost.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks for the
helping.
engagement.
I'm doing my
Also,
part.
also, transphobes, if you want to hit up our TikTok.
Yeah, hey, transphobes, boost.
Hey,
Transphobes, boost it. Boost it.
I just need to hashtag D&D again, sadly.
I love laughing at them.
Oh,
Yeah,
so...
to an extent. And then I hit a point where I just block people.
Yeah,
I love that too.
it is ultimately best to just go straight to the block thing, because as we already know, if like TikTok's moderation, because no fucking human looks at anything in TikTok's moderation, is not great for the trans community. You can put up a thing on there where it's like, hey, I'm doing this thing, and I'll make a small tongue-in-cheek joke about, I don't know, cannibalism or something. And that will be a community violation. Meanwhile, somebody suggests that, I don't know, I get helicoptered or something, as like a direct threat to like something that happened to trans people in a country that doesn't like trans people. That's totally fine. No violations found. Cool.
Yeah, I've mentioned this like 2 other times on this podcast before, but I did one time respond to a transphobe on TikTok comment section who wished genocide upon our people, and then I got a warning from TikTok for hate speech.
Yeah,
So
They didn't.
it's like, yeah.
one of the radical friends that puts a lot of content on TikTok got an account suspension for posting a screenshot of a news article that was an interview where someone had been talking about the increasing fear of genocide being done to trans people. And because it had genocide in it, no, that's an account violation.
Mm-hmm.
People suck.
It's bad. It's bad. AI taking over all the things is bad. We need people in charge of things. Human beings. Real human beings, not digital employees. Real people.
That AI is real good at diagnosing neurodivergent and queer people, though.
So
it
it
figured
did a
me
good
out a
job
long
of
time ago.
putting the dots together for me, because I clearly wasn't going to do it on my own, despite the dots being this big and very colorful.
I was on TikTok for like 2 months and it already knew me way better than my parents.
Like, are you...
Well, your parents suck.
It turns out you are an autistic ADHD trans woman and you had no idea. I mean, I had an idea about the ADHD because I did have a diagnosis for that in the 6th grade. However, my mom refused to act on that because, well, no, my kid's not ADHD. They can play video games for several hours at a time.
They just need more discipline.
They just need
story.
to focus more. Yeah.
You're just being lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Woman, your child is reading the dictionary from A to Z.
My parents had me IQ tested when I was in middle school to prove I was capable, but then like would not listen when they were like, capability has nothing to do with this. And my parents were like, but capable.
No, it's fine. I love the DSM-4, where their version of autism is based on IQ scores.
And also just entirely cis AMAB people.
Yeah.
Which there's only a certain number of people who are cis AMAB people, and there's plenty more autistic people that are not cis AMAB people.
God, the DSM-4. Growing up as a child in the 90s, when the R slur was just a thing that people could say.
And back in the 90s, they thought that like you couldn't have ADHD as an adult, that you would just grow out of it.
And also, for someone AFAB to even get an ADHD diagnosis in the 90s is fucking unfathomable, because the symptoms would present differently than their rambunctious AMAB counterparts. So you end up with a bunch of male children that are diagnosed with it. But
oh my God.
We just get to live with it instead.
You just unlocked another memory in me, which was when I was on dive team as an elementary schooler. They did like superlatives and they put them on paper plates, and mine was the bouncing off the walls award. Gender affirming.
What do you mean, my inability to sit still, my very, very fast rate of speech, my very, very loosely threaded streams of consciousness that have no segues? No, this is just a kid that needs to focus more.
You need more discipline. You need to try harder, and you just need to do better.
Shape up, or
that
we're
doesn't
send
fix
you to
chemistry.
School.
Oh, my dad loved to talk about how my middle sister is also neurodivergent, and I think my oldest sister is too, but she's like a much more controlled variety. But like with my middle sister and I, it was very much, if you just join the military, you'd finally learn discipline and they'd take care of you. It's like,
I mean, don't get
eaten
me wrong, the
alive.
military loves the autism spectrum because it results in people that are like, you have given clear instructions for what I should do. Great, I'm going to excel at this shit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Exhibit A, my father. Not that he's diagnosed. Well, is there any closing thoughts that we want to make?
If I ever closed a thought, I don't know what would happen. I'm terrified of the possibility.
Well, I've had a wonderful time. A very wonderful time. And I
Yeah,
really
me
just
too.
loved hearing about all the different adventures you've had in your life.
Mhm.
Don't worry, there
Wow,
are
you
more.
Yeah, we've been talking to you for so long, like on the Discord and the comment sections and everything. It's like, it's so nice to meet face to face, like
My
face to
emotional
face.
support structure is the little queer people that live in my phone.
Well, you should come
There's
visit
little
us
queer people that
sometime.
live in my phone.
How do I jump? I don't know how to get in my phone.
Oh, it's in the phone.
Yeah,
There's
just
a lot
jump
of
in.
people who live in my phone.
Jump into the portal in a phone and you'll turn out in my craft room filled with moving boxes that aren't on camera right now.
Yeah.
I feel like if I developed the superpower to travel through my phone, I would get lost.
Me too.
By the way, Ben, moving boxes are good for acoustics, so never finish unpacking.
I won't.
I'm happy to enable you.
I won't.
It's a good system.
Or just more yarn.
I would love that.
more yarn in more places.
I tried to get Chris to take me to the craft store for my new birthday today, and he was like, we had to pay almost $1,000 for our plumbing in our basement like a week ago. And I was like, how dare you not be wealthy?
Wait, how is Basement Cat doing, by the way?
Oh, she's fully living room cat, but she
Yay!
and one of our other cats, Rogie, the two ladies like to fight a little bit. They growl a lot. She's doing great.
Yeah.
I'll post more pictures of her. I posted a lot of pictures of her already, but I'll post more.
I should try
She's-
and get more footage of the girls.
Yes, I want more.
And also
blep
my
maps.
dogs.
Yes, but remember,
Subscribe to our
paywall.
Patreon.
A paywall of boobs.
That's right,
Do
that's
not
right.
ever
Subscribe.
give them away for free.
Subscribe to the Brat Pod Patreon and
The only trans.
oh yes.
Only
yes.
trans.
No, because like if you set up a thing on a place called Only Trans, it's just gonna be the worst fucking chasers, and I don't
Oh my
think
God.
That's true.
I
Oh,
will have to ramble about chasers in a gym setting in a future episode.
I would love that.
jeez.
Speaking of gym settings, where can people find you online if you'd
I
like
have-
to share?
I have exactly a thing that I can be found on. I am 8-bit Brooke, so 8, the number 8-bit Brooke on TikTok. And
Mhm.
my channel is mostly lifting things up and putting them down set to video game music that I enjoy, and occasionally content of the dogs, or me rambling about my lived trans experience, or inappropriate jokes that come to mind in response to stuff that my friends have posted. Most recently, a joke about pegging at the Cracker Barrel. So if pegging at the Cracker Barrel sounds like a good time, you should check out my
Sounds
channel.
amazing.
Also a good name for your next romance novel.
Ooh, pegging at the Cracker Barrel would be a... We'll look it up later. Food first.
And also, if anyone out there wants to connect with Brooke, she's active in our Discord. She's one of our Discord besties,
Frankly, she
So-
won't shut up on your Discord.
I
It's
love it.
which is great, and we love that. We appreciate that.
yay.
All right. Well, it's been really fun talking to you tonight.
Yay.
Until next time, I'm your brat, Robin.
I'm your brat, Ben.
And I'm the official podcast Muscle Mommy Brooke.
That's
Yes, you are.
right. All right. We'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my god, she's so fun.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's not that kind
yet.
of podcast.
It's not
yet.
that kind of podcast.
How much money are people willing to pay?
For a mere $15 a month.
We'd have to send you at least 10.
At least 5%.
and then wifey as producer, and then janitor.
Did somebody order a pizza? How am I going to pay for all this pizza?
I want pizza now.
I'm sorry.
I'm still full from lunch.
But you don't have any money.
7
How will
hours
you pay
ago.
for it?
That's a good question. Hey, honey, can I trade sex with a stranger for pizza?
A stranger?
I don't know the pizza person.